We're going to turn our attention back to some of the weekend action in sport. It was a very busy sporting weekend, and the Katie Taylor fight, and sadly disappointing defeat for Katie Taylor at Dublin's 3 Arena to Chantelle Cameron. And delighted to welcome the Offaly boxer who's been on to the show with us on the show at different points before, Gráinne Walsh, to the show this morning. Gráinne, how are things?
How are you keeping? Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for joining us. You're in Poland at the moment, so you've been in Germany, you're in Poland, and you're fighting tomorrow, is that right?
Fighting tomorrow, yeah. So you got me at a good time, to be fair. I have no fight day today, so I'm kind of just resting, making weight and all for tomorrow, so I'm good to go.
You could talk to us all day if you wanted.
Well, I wouldn't push it that far now. You mightn't like me. The more hungry I get, you mightn't like talking to me.
Bit of hanger.
Yeah. Do you mind the day before a fight? Is it, or do you be nervous, or is it more just minding yourself, relaxing, chilling out?
It's kind of, I don't know, like I've been in this position a good few times, so it's we got the draw and all yesterday, so I don't really like to look too far into the draw. I kind of just like being told who I'm fighting, what day I'm fighting, and then I'll take it one day at a time from there. I don't really like going into if I beat her, I fight her, and it doesn't really make any difference. You have to take it one day at a time in this sport. So,
psychologically, Gráinne, how much prep goes into the opponent and knowing like what to expect, how many curveballs you might expect, or how much you have to match up?
See, on the international scene, you kind of be fairly familiar with most people in your weight division. So like even around the hotel, like I'm seeing familiar faces, people I've fought before, people I've sparred at training camps and stuff. So you'd have a general idea yourself, but I tend to leave the real nitty gritty down to the coaches. They do their research on the opponent and they know your best assets and they come up with a bit of a game plan. But as well, a lot of it is done on the job as soon as you get in, because if you prepare for a certain type of fighter, and if they usually throw a 1-2 off the bat, for example, and then they don't do that, you have to be able to adapt yourself. So I try not to get too bogged down on exactly what's going to happen, because a lot can change in 10 seconds, never mind 3-minute rounds. So,
well, actually on that, because it changed very, very early for Katie Taylor the other night, where like it was like the narrative was dead within half a minute nearly. It was like, okay, here we go.
Yeah, like, you know, no one really knows what goes on in other people's camps or corners or tactics or any of that sort of stuff. Like, you know, there would have been an awful lot of research done in both camps on each other's on each other for the fight at the weekend. But, you know, again, a high pressure situation, you just don't know what way that affects you. And I don't know, I just feel like Chantelle's style just didn't really suit Katie Taylor's style. I think in boxing it's very much a sport of styles make fights, and I just think that Chantelle's relentless pressure is just all wrong for Katie. Whether they're going to have a rematch or not, I'm not too sure, but yeah, I think it'll be a tough few days following that defeat there at the weekend, and a very sad day for Ireland in general, because you know, Katie has done so much for not just sports people in Ireland, but just the people of Ireland, to give them something to smile about over the last decade or more. So yeah, we owe a lot to her.
Yeah, sad evening generally. Well, with Thomas Cardy, of course, won the Celtic heavyweight strap, and then a couple of hours before the main event, you have the crowd already in their seats waiting for some other Irish fighters. Dennis Hogan, who was in here last week, unfortunately lost his IBO super welterweight title on a points decision. That was against JJ Metcalf, and then Gary Cully, his first career defeat as well against Jose Felix. That was a third round knockout in that one. So already there was a couple of little mini blows, I guess, Gráinne, before Katie even took to the ring. It just kind of sucks the energy out of the room, I guess.
Yeah, like I can only imagine what the atmosphere must have been like at the fight, and like the tickets were so hard to get for the fight anyway, so I kind of lost hope on even getting tickets. But then as the fight grew closer, and even around fight week, all the buzz, like, God, I was raging I wasn't going, but then obviously I was coming away here, so it was, I had no choice really. But
you couldn't get a ticket, no?
Night for the Irish. Sorry?
You couldn't get a ticket, no?
No, tickets were like, people were thinking that, oh, we get sorted out because we're with the Irish team and all, but no, it's first come, first served. If you don't get one, there's no backhanders, unfortunately. Like if it was Croke Park, it might be different, there'd be more tickets available, but because the 3 Arena can only hold, you know, X amount of the whole population who would love to be there on the night, it was kind of, they were like gold dust, unfortunately. But look, I was here anyway, so it didn't really make much difference. But there was 8 of us gathered around the phone here. We landed on Saturday night, so we just made it to the hotel in time to watch the fight. And yeah, we just had seen Gary as well, and like a huge upset. Like, you know, it's just mad. Boxing that's why I don't like to look too far ahead. You're only as good as the current time and your last performance. So I just think it's very difficult when you start looking into the future and planning all different things until you actually take care of business on the day.
You mentioned there the difference in styles between Katie Taylor and Chantelle Cameron, and of course it's been well publicised that Katie had to go up a weight class as well. There was a 3-inch reach advantage, I think, for Chantelle Cameron. Were you surprised then at the decision to opt for a fighter of the talent of Chantelle Cameron? Because she could have fought maybe a lesser boxer, won her fight in Dublin, had the lovely homecoming victory, but I guess it speaks volumes to Katie as well that she doesn't want the easy option.
Oh yeah, of course. And I've been watching all the post-fight interviews on all the different YouTube channels, and I like to do that actually in my downtime. I'm not really a big Netflix fan, but I like keeping up to date with all the pros and everything. So yeah, Katie honestly could have fought anybody and sold out the 3 Arena, but in her words, she wanted to have a night to remember for the Irish people, and she always wants to be remembered as taking the hardest challenges, and no one can argue that. She hasn't dodged anybody. She's had amazing fights and never shied away from a challenge. So like I said earlier, we have so much to thank her for. Like, I wouldn't be in this position here in Poland if it wasn't for what Katie did. Chantelle even said after the fight that she wouldn't be in that position if it wasn't for the way that Katie paved the way for everybody, not just Irish boxers, but females and boxers all around the world. So yeah, she could have fought anyone. She took the biggest challenge, but high risk, high reward, and unfortunately sometimes it just doesn't go your way. Nothing is guaranteed in boxing, and as you see with Gary's fight, one punch can change everything. And yeah, a sad night, but we can take our hats off to them for taking the big challenges, and that's what we want to be remembered for in the sport, not taking any easy options.
That early start maybe took some people by surprise, just the dominance of Chantelle Cameron in the early rounds. I think by the start of round 6 she was maybe 4-1 up with a lot of ringside scorecards, pinned to the ropes. She was taking a lot of punishment as well, Katie Taylor. And even I was reading Michael Carruth afterwards, Gráinne as well, and he was talking about the body shots. He was saying her sharpness just wasn't there. She was getting caught with a lot of body shots, and that is soul destroying, as it literally takes the air out of you. So that's not an easy thing, I'm sure, for her to have had to put up with as well. Early rounds, when you're getting so many body shots, it takes its toll.
Yeah, of course. And you can take, I don't know, from personal perspective, a body shot can really sap the energy straight out of you. So I don't know, everyone kind of thought that Katie would snatch the early rounds and Chantelle would come on stronger in the late rounds, but I think Katie may have been trying to save some energy for the late rounds. Look, we can only speculate. We've no idea. Only Katie and her team know what the tactics were, but I just feel she looked a little bit overtrained, if anything. Didn't have that up on the toes, kind of in and out sharpness that we have seen previously. Look, no one can say what that actually is. I'd say Katie's even thinking, what went wrong at the weekend or whatever. But you mentioned about the moving up in weight class. It would be a very different fight, even moving up the same way Katie did, if Chantelle was a different style fighter. If she was a counter puncher and on the back foot, it wouldn't have been as evident, but because Chantelle was sitting on Katie's chest for the entire time and never took a step back, she would have felt every bit of that weight difference. So I think that was the defining factor in that regard. And for 10 rounds, you could see at the end, Chantelle looked like she could have went on and done a few more. So I think the styles was just the wrong kind of match. But we'll see. If Chantelle is talking about moving down to 135 pounds, that could go in Katie's favour, and they could change the tactics up altogether. We just don't know. But on Saturday night, it looked like it was one-way traffic, really.
If you were Katie, would you want to fight her again?
Stylistically, look, Katie is going to want to fight her again regardless, because like Eddie Hearn said afterwards, she's not going to be able to sleep with that loss on her record. There's a rematch clause in the contract for a reason, and whatever way that happens now, I'm sure Chantelle will want some things in her favour, because she did take everything, the shorter end of the straw for everything this week, or on the fight week last week, as the homecoming for Katie. But now she has her own things to kind of shout about as well. So it would be nice to see the fight again, maybe in Katie's weight division this time, for Chantelle to challenge to be a two-way undisputed champion. But we just don't know. There's a lot of things that you can speculate about, but as I said earlier, no one knows what goes on behind the scenes. There's an awful lot of things that go on that we have no idea about, so we'll just have to wait to see in the coming months.
In that decision as to if they do have that rematch and trigger that rematch clause, and as you say, Katie probably will trigger that part of her contract, what weight they fight at is so crucial, because I mean, if Chantelle Cameron comes down to 135 pounds, as you say, Gráinne, and takes all her belts at that level, I mean, that would be, it's such a blow for Katie Taylor.
It is. That's the only thing I'd worry about. That's the only thing that I would maybe doubt if Katie will want the fight at that weight, because it was grand. She was coming up. She was the challenger, even though she was the favourite and the homecoming and everything. She was the challenger, so she still had her 5 belts at 135. But if now after that fight and seeing that Chantelle's style is a very difficult style to deal with for Katie's style particularly, moving down, obviously the risk of losing it all maybe just a step too far. So we'll just see. I know there'll be many negotiations going on, but I think the two girls need to just take a bit of time out now, enjoy the time off, and then maybe just think about what's coming up next. But we never know. There's talk about the Amanda Serrano rematch yet, so we just don't know what's going to happen. It's
funny, you look at the fight it was a tight fight, but I guess if you look at the stats from CopyBox, so Chantelle Cameron threw 565 punches versus Taylor's 284, and then there's other metrics as well. So she landed, Chantelle Cameron that is, 141 to 111, 27 jabs landed versus 21. You have 114 power punches landing versus 90 for Katie. So all of these stats, perhaps unsurprisingly, in favour of the bigger boxer, Gráinne.
Yeah, I think, even though Chantelle threw more than double that Katie threw, but it's just, and even she didn't even land a massive amount more in the stats. But if you're a judge sitting on the side of the ring, the general picture of the fight, Katie's back was on the ropes the majority of the time, and Chantelle was the one pressing on. Now, when Katie did plant her feet and throw 5 punches in the blink of an eye, that's what Katie's best at. But the side steps and all that sort of stuff, we didn't see that part of Katie Taylor. But look, they could have had a completely different game plan. You never know. You know that famous saying, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. So it's easy for us sitting out here with no pressure on us to be able to not criticise, but to, put our own kind of opinion on it. But it's very different when you're the home favourite, you're getting in and there's 10,000 screaming Irish fans there and all the pressure is on you. You just don't know what way that affects you. I know myself, being in the back end of Poland, the pressure is still high here, so I can only imagine what she's feeling getting in. And in a way, Chantelle had no pressure on her at all. No one was expecting her to win, really.
What is the Katie Taylor thing, like, Gráinne? I genuinely, I don't get it, because like I'm not really into boxing. Like the tickets were over 500 quid the other night. Boxing's on the periphery of people's mind in Ireland. It's not a big sport over here. Women's boxing obviously is the smaller end of that. And Katie, as I mentioned earlier, she won that Personality of the Year against Sam Bennett, and the hype around Katie Taylor is incredible. Like, and I could see from your perspective how inspiring she is, but like, she's not necessarily hugely charismatic. She's quite shy in her own way. There's just something about her that Irish people have absolutely embraced, like hook, line, and sinker, and love her. Like,
yeah. When you think of the difference between herself and Conor McGregor, like, and McGregor sitting ringside, he's very much a Marmite kind of character. You either love him or you hate him. Whereas I've never heard anyone to say a bad word really about Katie Taylor. She doesn't really scream and shout from the rooftops. She's very unassuming. She's won everything there is to win in a sport that, it's just crazy the things that she's done, and she doesn't look for major praise for it, which I think is so admirable. And it's not only people in boxing who she's appealed to, at the weigh-ins and at the public workout. You have people of, all backgrounds, old women, old men, young women, young girls, young fellas. Like, she just appeals to everyone. You don't have to be a boxer to find her an inspiration. So
it's really interesting to say that, actually, because maybe it is her humility, the fact that Irish people naturally don't really like arrogance. They don't really like people being above themselves. Maybe it is that.
Yeah, I think for Irish people, we're very quick to be like, oh, get over yourself, or bring people back down to earth. So I think that's what's so nice about Katie Taylor, is that she is so humble, and even though she has every reason to to scream and shout from the rooftops and dictate X, Y, and Z. She doesn't do that. That's not her style. And I always thought when she turned pro, would it be as successful because she doesn't have that trash talking? But look, it just shows her your talent can do the talking for you, and she's proved that. So I think that's why she's touched so many people.
Yeah, that's probably why it felt so unnatural when Katie was calling out Chantelle Cameron on social media. You're like, this doesn't sound like Katie Taylor. You mentioned the atmosphere there, Gráinne, like as something that plays a role, because all last week I was thinking, the home crowd is going to play to Katie's advantage and she'll have no fear. But then you forget of the impact of being that home favourite, and Chantelle Cameron perhaps comes out, and it would have been so easy for her to kind of bow down and hide away from that away crowd, but she seemed to lean into the role of not the villain, but I guess it is the villain. No one in the arena wants you to win, essentially.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I always knew that Chantelle's style would pose issues for Katie Taylor, but it all just comes down to who shows up properly on the day, and we don't know. Like, he used a keyword there, perhaps. We have no idea. We can only look from the outside looking in and see what we might think of, how it would affect you walking out with that many people. It could spur you on. Katie's no stranger to the big occasion. Like, she's been, over 10 years ago, she was boxing in the Olympics in London, and, in the XL Arena when the decibel levels hit an all-time high and all that sort of thing. So she's been doing, this is second nature to her, but you just don't know. I don't think Chantelle shied away from it at all, and it made for a brilliant fight. It was a competitive fight, but in my opinion, a one-sided competitive fight, if that makes sense.
Finally, Gráinne, what would you like to see Katie's next year or two look like? There's been some calls from some boxers for her to maybe retire or consider retirement. Obviously, none of us have any right to, I guess, tell Katie what to do. She's going to do what she's going to do regardless. Would you expect a rematch and maybe the Serrano fight leaning into next year, or how do you think the next year or two is going to go for Katie Taylor?
Well, look, we cannot, like you said, we have no right to dictate what she does, and she has good people around her, people who care about her and stuff. So I know that she'll be getting good advice from everyone that's around her. But realistically, if she keeps fighting, there is only 2 fights that she could possibly have. That's the Chantelle rematch and the Amanda Serrano fight. So if she decides to continue, and if she boxes those 2 fights, regardless of what way they go, I think she maybe at that point she'll have completed boxing. She's already completed boxing. She had completed boxing back in 2012 when she won gold at the Olympics. Her dad wanted her to retire then, but we're 11 years on now and she's still going strong. So if she wants to continue on and has those 2 more fights, she will have literally completed the book. So she could go off and maybe enjoy the fruits of her labour and all the hard work and sit back and watch the next generation come through. Like, she's been so passionate about paving that way, so it'd be nice for her to sit with her feet up, not getting punched anymore, and watch us go through it.
Before Gráinne's back on, we got to get a Netflix documentary that she might actually watch, maybe something on boxing.
You can stick to
I actually watched the Conor McGregor one. There was only a 4-piece one, so me and my roommate watched it there the last 2 nights, but we've run out of that now, so I think I'm going to go back to reading to try and get the mindset right for the fight tomorrow.
Absolutely. Well, listen, Gráinne, always great to chat to you, and listen, very best of luck in that fight tomorrow.
Thanks very much, lads. Appreciate it.
Brilliant stuff. Gráinne Walsh there, always fascinating to chat to Gráinne.
She's class. Like, I think I was on with her once here before, but she's just the type of person you just want to have a coffee with, and have a bit of crack with. Maybe watch a hurling game or something.
Yeah, she was a very good soccer player back in the day.
Yeah, I remember I remember talking about her path to boxing, because like as a young girl, what sports do you get into? And her path to boxing was kind of it was a little bit random, but it's just, I'm always of the opinion that kids should try everything. Throw your hat in the ring at everything, and pardon the pun, because it's like the kids that don't become jockeys or never sat in a horse. If they sat in a horse, half them would fall in love with it 100%. Try everything, and if you're a parent, I know it's difficult with all what that entails, but give them a go at everything, I think.
Absolutely. Hear. Great stuff from Gráinne Walsh as per usual.